Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen and today I'll be reading my own one-shot, You Just Need a Rest. Sorry if I haven't uploaded in a couple of days. I had to go to my dad's the day after, still just meeting the whole family, and I have 5 little siblings, so yeah, you can imagine how stressful and unable to record I am. Then I had a funeral and then I went to my friend's house yesterday, so it's just been all over the place. But anyway, I might only be able to get one video in today since I'm 39 minutes behind schedule. God, I'm sounding like Kunikida now, but I'm 39 minutes behind schedule. Anyway, here is, 40 minutes behind schedule now. Here is the summary of this fic. After the boss wants Chuuya to stay another night working and go on a mission with Dazai, he finally cracks after meeting with Dazai, letting the man take care of him. Or a hurt comfort, that I wrote based off of a random idea I had after seeing overworked Kunikida fics. Now, I'm not even sure if this is a trigger warning, but there is a single innuendo. I don't even think it could be counted as an innuendo because I just suck at all that stuff. And there's also just overworked Chuuya because there's not enough fics of overworked Chuuya. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this and let's get right into the fic. Chuuya-kun, please stay a little later than your scheduled hours again tonight, as there is a new mission you have to complete and report by sunrise. Regards, Mori. Chuuya sighed as he saw the message appear on the bottom right corner of his screen. Another night spent here. Great, the young man sighed to himself as he clicked on the message and sent a quick reply saying that it would be no trouble staying in for a few extra hours tonight. It's not like it would be anything new for him anyway. He closes the messaging tab with his boss before getting back to work, but make sure to click on the message and read it once the old man sends a thank you message and sends back a smiley face in return. Time seems to have just slowed to a stop for the past couple of months, with the agreement with the Armed Detective Agency to make peace with them once again while they were fighting over another common enemy that had been taking over every part of his work, from small things that Chuuya didn't think he should be doing as an executive, like managing the spending in the Port Mafia, on where money was going on this peace agreement, to major fights that they had to have in order to repel the enemy from invading their territory. Sighing yet again, he looks at the clock to see that he should probably go on this mission, whatever it is, so he could go home and drown his feelings in alcohol for the 4th time that week. So he gets up from his chair as his bones crack painfully, thinking about what this mission could possibly be. He knew that he would have to at least check in with Mori. That was a must that the boss knew he didn't need to put into the message, since every mission he had done as an executive have come directly from the boss himself. The door opens with a creak that hurts Chuuya's ears and makes him want to curl up into a ball and forget his whole life. But alas, he was a Port Mafia executive and he had things to do, places to go, and a mission to complete. As Chuuya made his way out of his office, he saw some of his subordinates walk by. Wishing to be the best he could be, he waved at each member and gave a few of them enthusiastic high fives as he made his way down the hallway, but never once letting down his smile that he had automatically put on without much effort. He waits at the lifts at the end of the hall, smiling at the person next to him, not taking notice of who it was, and walked into the elevator with them. It was an awkward silence at first, but something he did not often feel with his subordinates, but this one seemed to be able to read through his exterior. Nakahara-san? A young female voice says as she looks at the only exit, obviously trying not to make Chuuya upset. Are you feeling okay? Her voice was sweet and nothing like a person that worked in Yokohama's darkest corner. It was now that Chuuya noticed who she was. It's okay, Yukimoto-chan. Just had a hard day at the office and a new mission. Don't stress about it, young lass. Chuuya's voice came out soft and gentle, using the slang Koya had used with him his whole time as a mafioso, and it was something the older woman still used to address him to this day. Yukimoto nods reluctantly, but gives Chuuya a concerned look out of the corner of her eye. The young woman had barely reached adulthood and she was already in the mafia, quickly making her way up through the ranks. She's going to be a scary person when she gets older, the ginger man thinks to himself as he looks over to her, meeting her emerald green eyes. "You're going to be strong, Yukimoto-chan," Chuuya says out of nowhere, his mind being clouded by his thoughts for a short moment, speaking out without thinking. The woman flinches slightly, but bows anyway to the executive. "Thank you, Nakahara-san." Her voice slightly high-pitched than her normal, at the sudden compliment. Her excitement was well hidden, but didn't escape Chuuya's gaze. It was then when the elevator reached the ninth floor, and the young woman smiled brightly at Chuuya before leaving the elevator. The doors closed soon after their short goodbye, and Chuuya deflates as he realizes he was alone in the small room, before quickly reminding himself that why he was in the elevator in the first place. "Snap out of it," he mentally scolds himself, slapping his face slightly to get into the right headspace for this job. "You're on a mission, you have to do this perfectly," he tells himself as he opens his eyes just as the elevator reaches the 10th floor. Chuuya takes a deep breath, the guards looking at him before clearing the way for him to get to Mori's office. The air was almost silent as Chuuya walks up to the boss's office, only his steps and heavy breathing making noise. He stops in front of the door, squishing his eyes together before taking one last breath and knocking on the door. He waits for the older man to say a quick, "Come in," and Chuuya doesn't pause before opening the door. "Hello, boss. What's the mission that needs to be completed?" he asks, as he takes his hat off his head and places it on his heart, crouching down on one knee as he does so to show respect. The older man just lets out an amused laugh, Chuuya's sign that he could get up and stand normally. "There's a mission with the agency. I need you to complete it. Are you up for it?" Chuuya knew that this wasn't a real question, a demand that Chuuya must agree to. He simply nods, not trusting his voice at the moment to work properly. The room is quiet for a moment, the head of the Port Mafia seeming to look over him with analytic eyes. "It's a mission to get Q back from the enemy," Mori says bluntly as he leans over his desk with a hand under his chin. Chuuya simply nods, letting the older man continue to speak. The mission is explained over a few minutes, and Chuuya thinks that he has a general gist of what's meant to be done. He takes a manila folder from the desk as Mori places it there, quickly giving the first page a read over. The ginger nods. "It sounds pretty simple," he says out loud, mostly to himself, but he doesn't soften his voice at all. "Thank you, boss. Who will be my assigned agency member?" Mori chuckles lightly at this question, his smile giving off a menacing vibe. "Why, it's Starzai-kun, of course," he says with a smile that shouldn't have been able to fit on his face. Chuuya stands there in shock, trying to process what was happening. It takes him a few moments to come up with a response that wouldn't instantly get him killed. "With all due respect, boss, wasn't that meant to be a one-time fight with the guild?" His voice was quiet, being careful to mind his tone, even though the only thing he wants to do is break into Mori's expensive wine collection and drink it all, so he doesn't have to think about the mackerel. His boss laughs as he sees Chuuya's eyes momentarily glance over a specific bookshelf that leads to the wine collection that Chuuya was so desperate to break into. "As much as I know that you wish that you wouldn't have to work with Dazai, this mission requires Sokoku to come back together again. Are you able to do it?" His boss's voice was harsher than before, not showing budging in his decision. "Yes, boss," Chuuya replies as he bows in front of him, keeping the folder clutched to his chest as he does so. When Chuuya looks up again, he sees Mori give him one last nod before dismissing him, not even bothering to give Chuuya a time to meet up with the enemy, knowing that everything he needed for this mission was in the folder. As soon as the young man was let out of the office, as soon as the young man is out of the large office, he lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding in. Fuck, he whispers to himself as he slightly curls in on himself, not taking note of the guards around the office. Of course that's me, does I? He whispers out again, another quiet curse coming from his mouth as he straightens his legs, pushing his shoulders back and tilting his head up slightly, tilting his head up, silently telling the guards not to speak of this to anyone. Chuuya is satisfied when he sees the guards who had their eyes on him quickly look away and gulp. He lets out a small smile at this. Although he hates making one his own scared, he has a reputation to keep up as the strongest in the Port Mafia, only second to his boss. His steps are quick afterwards, making their way down towards the elevator at the end of the long corridor. He straightens his back more as he waits for the elevator, deciding to look at the mission folder more in depth this time. Find Yumeno Kusaiku. I should have practiced that name before. Okay. The Port Mafia members in this mission: Nakahara Chuuya. Members from current allies: Dazai Osamu, Armed Detective Agency. The mission details went on for some time, and the executive got more pissed as he kept reading. The only thing snapping him out of his anger being the elevator chime as the door opened. Chuuya sighed as he closed the small folder and stepped into the elevator. I'll deal with this later, he thinks to himself, as he presses the button that will bring him to the ground floor. As the elevator passed each level, Chuuya prayed that no one else would come into the small space with him. He didn't want to hear from anyone else as to why he was on a higher floor than normal. Unluckily, the doors opened at the very next floor, and of course, he had to be on the universe's wrong side today, which he was more often than not, and the one person he knew for a fact that could see through his facade walked in, his superior Ozaki Koyo. The ginger quickly puts on a wide smile, hoping with all his might that she wouldn't see through it, and of course, since the very fabric of the universe hated him, the second she saw him, her normal soft smile went into a slight frown. Chuuya-kun, she greeted like she hadn't noticed, but the younger wasn't that dumb as to not notice the smallest expression changes on someone's face. Koyo's? Her eyes widened just the smallest bit, and she bit the inside of her lips softly, as if she was trying not to be noticed, and then there was the obvious frown. All of it together made Chuuya know that she had noticed, even if she wasn't going to say anything, which was unlikely. He knew he wouldn't get off that easily. If Yukimoto could notice, someone who only knew Chuuya as a strong executive, then he knew the person that was closest to him in the Mafia would notice too. Chuuya knew that he looked like shit if his subordinate's earlier concern wasn't just a fluke, which he didn't doubt. He was sure his hair was a mess, had deep eye bags under his eyes, and his posture was slouched. Why did I even allow myself to be seen by the boss like this? His thoughts scream at him as he awkwardly looks away from the other executive. He simply hears Koyo sigh as she steps into the elevator and presses the button above the one he had already pressed. The small space was silent for a few moments, the younger even holding his breath as the elevator started moving again. Are you okay? Her words were simple, no need to look deeper than that she was just worried about Chuuya. But today, Chuuya couldn't afford to give in to the oldest question and start ranting. He had things to do, and, God fucking help him, a mackerel to meet up with for a mission. Chuuya knew that he would regret not accepting her help now. If she wouldn't ask again, and Chuuya knew he had too much pride to go up and ask for help on his own directly. But he couldn't just say those two simple words, help me. He wanted to say those two small words so badly, but his body and mind just wouldn't let him. He knew that he would just keep going until he broke, and that scared Chuuya. He always accepted Annie-san's help when offered, but this time he felt trapped and alone by his responsibilities. It was at this time where he notices that he'd been quiet for a little too long, and Kunikida was standing in front of him, lightly waving her face in front of Chuuya's eyes. He flinches ever so slightly, but enough for the other executive to notice, making her frown even deeper. "Are you okay, lad?" She repeats herself as she brings her hand away from Chuuya's face, now that he was aware of his surroundings again. The young man just nods robotically, giving her a smile that he knew was a little too forced to be believed. Kunikida simply sighs and places her hand on his shoulder, making him look up at her. "You know you don't have to be alone, right, lad?" Her question wasn't letting Chuuya have a choice in what to say, but his brain, too full of worries about, well, everything, to hear the underlying threat in her voice. He just smiles wider and nods as he hears the elevator bing, along with a robotic voice telling them that they were on the second floor. She sighs as she turned around to leave the elevator, briefly looking over her shoulder as she stood at the door. "I'll be here if you need me," she says quietly, just loud enough for Chuuya to hear her over the light chatter in the hallway surrounding them. The man is frozen by her words, and the door closes again and the elevator starts moving. He takes a deep breath as he closes his eyes, trying to take in the conversation he just had. It felt like it took forever before the elevator closed the space between the second floor and the ground floor that Chuuya was after, but it eventually came to a stop, and the man quickly put up his smile before the door opened. He was instantly grateful that he did, as there were a few of his subordinates at the door looking to go to a higher floor. Chuuya's smile was forced, and he was sure that other people could tell, as he greeted them with a short hello before stepping out of the elevator and letting the other mafiosos in and setting off for the front door. It was nighttime, probably 3 a.m. if Chuuya had to guess by where the moon was at in the sky. The weather was nice for a winter's night. A few drops of snow fell from the sky as he looked up and they fell onto his face. He let the cool night's air take over him for a moment, and for the first time in a while, Chuuya smiles genuinely. He stays like that for what feels like forever, but is really only a few minutes when he feels a light tap on his shoulder and a small cough come from behind him. "Hello, Chuuya-san." A gruff voice greets Chuuya. A gruff voice greets as Chuuya turns his head around, his genuine smile fading almost instantly, as his attention gets pulled away from the way the night made him feel at home. "Hey, Octogao-kun, it's a nice night, isn't it?" He greets back casually as he puts on another strained smile, this one slightly less stable than his normal one. The black-haired mafioso sighed lightly as he looked up towards the sky next to the short man. "One could say that," he replies simply as he takes a deep breath in, and Chuuya could tell he was having a hard day. So, in typical Chuuya fashion, he ignores his own problems to comfort the younger man. "You okay?" He mimics the simple words of Koyo, trying to match her tone as well as he could. The other man just sighs and glances at Chuuya through the corner of his eyes. "Just a rough day. 27 men died on the battlefield today," the younger said as he lifted his head back up to the sky and took another deep breath in. Chuuya wanted to bring his subordinate any comfort he could bring him, but Chuuya also had rough days when they lost some of their men on the battlefront. Chuuya took another breath of fresh air before reaching into his pocket with practiced precision and grabbed out his cigarettes along with a lighter. "I would offer you one, but I know you already have a hard enough time breathing without smoke adding to it. The ginger lets out a small laugh before mumbling something else under his breath. What was that, Chuuya-san? Octogao asks slightly as he turns his head fully to look at Chuuya properly. He places the cigarette in his mouth and lights it. The shoulder man takes a long drag of his smoke before pulling it away from his face. The older man takes some time to consider if he should tell his subordinate what he said. He didn't want the younger man to hear him in the first place, but if he said... Sorry, that's just my alarm for the schedule. Where was I? He didn't want the young man to hear him in the first place, but if he said no now, the other would think that it was something negative about himself. God knows Dazai already fucked up his self-esteem. He thinks to himself before speaking. I said, it's not a fun habit to kick either. He says just loud enough for the two of them to hear. His subordinate gives him a confused look as he turns his body to his superior, giving him his full attention. Are you addicted, Chuuya-san? He asks lightly, but not beating around the bush and just asking him what was on his mind. Chuuya gives him a small laugh as he smiles up at him, also turning his body fully to his subordinate. Just a little, he says as he tries to brush up the other's concern with a laugh, quickly fading away as the younger man places a hand on his shoulder. You can always ask me for help, Chuuya-san, he states bluntly as he puts his other hand on the man's shoulders as well. Now, holding him at arm's length and staring him in the eyes. At Octogao's words, his walls crumble a little. With that, he takes a shaky breath in as he holds back tears. What's with me today? Why am I so emotional? He asks his brain in search of an answer, knowing he would get nothing in return. The executive just gives the young man as bright of a smile as he could manage in the moment, before turning away from him and walking into the night. Thanks, Zaku. Chuuya says softly as he gives the man a light wave as he drops the AnimePodFics for just a moment as he walks in the other direction. I have a stupid mackerel to meet up with, so I'm gonna head off, he says in an annoyed tone, making sure not to turn back as he takes another breath from his momentarily forgotten cigarette. So, he walks. Chuuya walks with the folder in hand as he makes his way to the meeting point that was said in the small file. He stops right around the corner and checks his watch. 3:47. Good. I'm here 13 minutes early. He thinks to himself as he turns the last corner, surprised to see the shitty mackerel was already there. Chuuya laughs mockingly as he walks up to Dazai, his guard instantly back up, and Chuuya makes sure that the taller wouldn't see through him. So, the bastard's here early, he says loud enough for the next two streets over to hear him as he walks closer. Ah, Chibi! The brunette exclaims in a cheerful voice, not bothering to use AnimePodFics as he walks closer to Chuuya as well. Did my dog come to see his master early for some playtime? He says with his voice an octave higher than it normally would be. To say that Chuuya was pissed would be an understatement. He was furious. Can't you just let that bet die? He screams, not bothering to notice a few people around them looking. Dazai simply laughs louder as he places a hand under Chuuya's chin and tilts it up to look at him. Chuuya's face reddens slightly, but still enough for the other to notice. Fuck that shitty bastard, I'm gonna fucking get back at him, he promises himself as he stares up into Dazai's encapsulating amber eyes, and manages to shake himself out of Dazai's grasp after a few seconds. And God, you're fucking kinky, if you keep wanting to be called master, the ginger says with a smirk on his face, all his worries pushed aside for the moment as he sees the brunette slightly freeze up before letting out a small laugh. Maybe if I'm so kinky, you should join me, right, Doug? He says with an ever-growing smile on his face, and his worries leave him for just a little bit longer as he blushes a little deeper at Dazai forcibly holding him against his chest and whispers into Chuuya's ear. Fuck you, Chuuya mumbles into the warm space, saving him from the knight's cold grasp. The tall man just laughs slightly, but he didn't let Chuuya leave, instead holding him tighter. After a little while in Dazai's arms, and his face as close to normal as it could get, Chuuya tries to pull away, only for the younger man to hold him closer. "I know something's wrong with you, Chibi," he says softly into Chuuya's ear, making him shiver slightly. "It's not like you to try and win with such ridiculous topics. You should know I beat your innuendos, Chuuya." The sudden use of Chuuya's given name makes him stiffen slightly in the other's hold as Dazai continues talking. "You look like shit too. What's wrong?" The other man's voice was soft, reminding Chuuya back in the their Port Mafia days together, where he had overworked himself to the point that Dazai intervened. "I'm fine, shitty mackerel," he states as harshly as he can, his voice despising him and making itself crack in the middle of his statement. Dazai simply sighs as he hears the executive's voice and suddenly picks him up. Before Chuuya could try and fight back, the young man cuts him off. "You've overworked yourself again, haven't you?" he asks just as softly as before, and Chuuya has to fight every muscle and instinct in his body to not give in into the secure hold and let himself relax, because of course his guard is still up, even if it is barely held together. "We have a mission to do," he tries to reason, but the two of them knew that this wasn't going to get dropped so easily, as much as Chuuya wished that were the case. "And you're overworked and need the rest. If it means so much to you, I can do the mission alone while you rest," he says calmly as he holds Chuuya close to his chest as it starts to rain. Chuuya knew he couldn't get out of this, but he just had to ask one more question before he would let himself relax. But why? His question may appear vague to anyone else, but his partner instantly knew as it was a question he had always asked when Chuuya intervened in his work. "Because I care," came his simple answer. No matter how deeply he looked into the man's words, he couldn't find any malice in his words. "Now, Chibi, sleep." It was more of a permission than an order, but Chuuya barely had any strength left in him, both physically and mentally, to deny him. The shorter man went limp in the other's arms, not asleep, but relaxing, just like the words Dazai said. From Chuuya's limp position in the other's arms, Chuuya lets another question that was itching in his brain slip out. "How soon did you know?" he asks just above a whisper, as he notices Dazai's grip shift to get something out of its pocket. "As soon as I saw you," he says softly with a slight laugh attached to his words. It takes a moment for his eyes to refocus on the world again, and notice that there was standing in front of Dazai's door. "Relax, Chibi, you're safe," he says with a light smile that Chuuya was barely able to catch, before relaxing into his ex-partner's arms yet again. "Thank you," the older man whispers softly as he curls into the other's chest, trying not to be noticed. The door opened soon after with a small creak and the smell of beer hitting his nose quickly. "You still drink?" he asks softly as he lifts his head up just a bit to look around to see most of the floor was covered in empty bottles. "Don't worry about me right now, Chuuya. I'm fine. You just need a rest," Dazai says carefully as he carefully places the tired man on his surprisingly soft couch, crouches down next to him, and runs his fingers through his matted hair, but makes sure not to hurt him. It doesn't take long for Chuuya to fall asleep. Given that he wasn't going on that mission, for some reason he still trusted his ex-partner, despite his betrayal, but right now he didn't care. All that mattered was his fingers going through Chuuya's matted curls. Okay, that was one hell of a recording session. pretty much in one go. I started a little bit at the start and had to restart like literally 2 seconds. But anyway, that was 4,426 words. 2,036 of them I written today. So yeah, I've done a lot of writing today. Anyway, it's dinner time now. So yeah, can see you later. Bye. Take care of yourself. Peace out.